Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, many of you are watching at home and following the County Public Health Directive order to shelter in place. We wish all of you the best and hope you're healthy and safe. Please check frequently to the Los Gatos Town website for updates on status and to get more information on what the order is. With that, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you and good evening. Councilmember Syak.
Here.
Councilmember Rennie. Vice Mayor Spector.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Jensen.
Here, and thank you to my fellow council members for respecting the order and participating remotely. I know it's hard to do that, but in order to keep us all safe, we have a skeleton crew here, and I thank you for your responsibility. So with that, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you join me? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I forgot that. Given the unusual circumstances tonight, I'm sort of hoping that council doesn't have any matters to report, but maybe before the lockdown, some occurred. But I'm going to go to Ms. Privetti first in case there's a townwide message that needs to get out.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. As many of you know, town offices were closed as of today, and they will remain closed through the order of April 7th. The library has been closed since Saturday. We have many staff who are telecommuting, so some services are being provided remotely. We ask that you please consult our website for the specific service of interest to determine whether or not we are able to assist you at this time. We do have skeletal crew, mostly department heads, working, and we have partially activated our emergency operations center, so we are poised to continue to provide service to the town of Los Gatos. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Privetti. With that, any council members have something to report?
This is Rob. I have a short item.
Go ahead, Councilman Rennie.
I attended the local government commission's Yosemite Policymakers Conference, and I sent the town manager a summary of my notes, which all the other council members have gotten, so you can review that, and I guess back to the town manager. If you have questions, you can ask them. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rennie. I think we all did receive that. I did, for sure. Thank you. Anything else to report?
I have a couple of items.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you. GPAC met since our last meeting, and we were focusing on the open space parks and recreation element, and the West Valley Sanitation District meeting met, where we considered our representation to the Treatment Plant Advisory Committee and conducting our meetings telephonically. That's it, and thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilwoman Sayak?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we are going to go to our consent items. Tonight, for those of you who may be watching, this will not be a normal council meeting as you normally experience it if you watch frequently. We have moved all of our agenda items to the consent calendar so we can more appropriately handle them in a remote electronic fashion. We have 10 on tonight. Some of those are on to be continued to April 7th, and we are hoping that we are able to conduct a meeting at that time. Please check back with the town's website if we're not, but several of the items that are on our consent calendar tonight are simply asking for requests for continuances. And I'm going to look to Mr. Schultz. Should I be summarizing those agenda items that are on consent this evening?
You certainly could very quickly.
Okay. We are approving our minutes from our last meeting of March 3rd. We are submitting our annual general plan and housing element progress report as required by statute. We are authoring the town manager to execute basically a contract and agreement with a consultant for guardrail improvements. We are authorizing different actions for our creek tail, park pathway, and parking lot seal coat to improve those. Authorizing the town manager to to enter into a contract agreement with our town auditor. Adopting, most importantly, adopting a resolution that ratifies the Director of Emergency Services, Ms. Pravetti, thank you for signing this, proclamation of an emergency, which was signed on March 12th. Prior to the shelter-in-place order going into effect, the town did declare its own emergency. This helps the town organize its resources and puts it in a position to hopefully get funding, should any become available as a result of what's going on now. The the next three, I should say, items are ordinances that we intended to adopt, one regarding family daycare, one regarding accessory dwelling units. The request is to continue to April 7th. The next is adoption of a preferred land use alternative framework for the general plan update. This was already seen by the Planning Commission. It's now time for the Los Gatos Town Council to look at it. And again, that's a continuance. And finally, a fee and fine schedule, which we're asking to continue to April 7th. With that summary, is there any council member who wants to pull an item or has a question about an item? I think Ms. Pravetti or Mr. Schultz are prepared to answer. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. There's no one.
No question.
Oh, no questions? I'm sorry. Mr. Rennie, did you have a question?
No questions.
Okay, great. I know that there are some persons that are in the lobby area. I don't believe that they want to pull anything. Perhaps Mr. Andrews who's out there, could give me a signal before I close it. Mr. Andrews, can you hear me in here? For people watching, the chamber is empty. Does anyone want to pull anything from consent? No one in the public wishes to pull anything from the consent calendar. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. With that, do I have a motion from the council with respect to the consent calendar?
I move to approve consent.
All right, I heard a move for consent by Councilwoman Sayoc and a second by Councilman Rennie. All in favor? Oh, I have to do a roll call.
Aye.
The Vice Mayor's aye. Councilwoman Sayoc?
Aye.
Wait, hang on, Mr. Rennie. Ms. Sayoc?
Aye.
Mr. Rennie?
Aye.
And an aye from me that passes unanimously. That concludes the actual business items. We have been advised, because it's the town tradition to do so, that we should make verbal communications available. We do have people here who want to present verbal communications. I believe we had 5 that are waiting in the lobby and separated by a 6-foot social distancing. They're going to be brought in one at a time. Council people, if you have questions, please make that known to Ms. Neese, and we'll try to get the questions answered. Because of the County Public Health Department order, and because we want to minimize any kind of exposure, even from the minimal people we have here, I am limiting the time on the verbal communication to 1 minute. And we're asking people, please do not touch the microphone.
We were told ahead of time that we would have 2 minutes by the time.
Per the agenda, the mayor has the prerogative to limit the time, given the County Public Health Department's directive that people shelter in place, even though you're here. I am limiting it to 1 minute to try to risk exposure.
Okay, well, the epidemic we're having right now has been foreseen for decades, and we're finding ourselves, unfortunately, in a situation where government is ill-prepared to be dealing with this, and after several weeks, we're just trying to play catch-up now. Wildfire, in the same way, has been foreseen by the governor's emergency wildfire evacuation proclamation, by CAL FIRE. Los Gatos has been hit by wildfires several times in the past. We've lost 50 homes to wildfires. It's very real. It's been foreseen. It's going to happen. Are we prepared is the question. This is an open letter to Mayor Jensen and the Town Council on
And we did
wildfires.
receive your letter, Mr. Siegel. Thank you.
Good. So as I know you're aware, Governor Newsom issued a wildfire emergency proclamation stating homes in the WUI are at extreme risk from wildfires, with a majority of historic homes in Los Gatos situated in the WUI. None are at greater risk than those in Glenridge Park. This is because of Glenridge Park's close proximity to the mountains, the fierce winds blowing through during wildfire season, many historic homes in this neighborhood serving as the first line of wildfire defense for Los Gatos and the entire southwest side of town,
Hello?
sitting between the Los Santa Cruz Mountains and Almond Grove.
Yeah, Rob is still here.
And historic,
Hang on a second, council people.
and historic homes, due to materials and building style, are far more flammable than ranch or modern-built homes that adhere to present-day building codes. In other words, the point is, if Glenridge Park burns, so will Almond Grove, as a wildfire would rapidly spread. The California legislature, together with Governor Newsom, recently passed AB 38, which offers some prescriptive guidance on what is needed to fire-harden homes in the WUI. It also states the matter is so serious that beginning in 2021, any home in the WUI being sold needs to come with documented full disclosure of what has and
Mr.
hasn't.
Siegel, that is your 2 minutes. I said 1 minute, and you've had 2 minutes. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Does any member of the council have a question for Mr. Siegel? Okay, I'm hearing none. Before Mr. Siegel leaves, Ms. Privetti, could you please go over what the town of Los Gatos has done since the start of the year, or actually since November, to make sure that we are in fact prepared for wildfire?
Thank you, Mayor. We share the concern that folks have regarding the vulnerability of Los Gatos to wildfire, and for that reason, the town council has taken many proactive steps to address this issue. Los Gatos was one of the first communities to adopt the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Annex 9 is what it's called for Los Gatos. This allows us to align with the county's emergency management plan as it pertains to wildfire. The town council has adopted several ordinances to essentially define defensible space, define weeds and hazardous vegetation in a way that is more consistent with wildfire protection, and to adopt tree protection ordinances and building codes to reinforce and ensure consistency among all these different parts of the town's municipal code and the state legislation. The town council identified its strategic priorities in January, and wildfire protection and management remains a high priority. And to that end, we have applied for grant money to do vegetation management around the town. And right now, we are soliciting proposals from vegetation management consultants to help us identify that right balance of vegetation clearing and maintenance of habitat in our open space areas. We should have that done quite soon. The town has also done an evacuation assessment identifying key routes of travel, which will remain part of our strategy as we clear vegetation to ensure appropriate egress and access in and around our wildfire-prone areas. There's more work to be done, certainly, but I think the town's leadership in this area has been quite remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Privetti. Mr. Siegel, you have no questions, so thank you very much. We'll call the next speaker.
Well, I just had one question there.
We don't answer questions. This is a time for you to provide us with input. We've gotten your letter and we've heard your comments.
Right.
We strongly recommend that you go home and follow the County Public Health Department's order to shelter in place.
Just for the record, AB 38 says specifically that
Mr.
vegetation
Siegel?
management is not effective in protecting people if
Mr.
their
Siegel,
homes are
Mr.
flammable.
Siegel, you are finished. Thank you.
Just to make that clear.
Sir, you'll have to, please don't touch the microphone. We'd appreciate it, but try to get it so that we can hear you, and please state your name. I did tell the earlier speaker that I'm exercising my priority to make it 1 minute. I believe he went well over 1 minute. And I let him, but I don't intend to let others because of the risk to anybody from exposure and frankly, the fact that people are not sheltering in place and are instead here. So please respect that 1-minute time frame and let us know your comments.
I understand. Thank you, Mayor Jensen. My name is Paul Fulton. I'm a resident of Los Gatos. I'd like to continue reading this document. The fact that so many insurance companies no longer renew their fire insurance policies for homes here in Glenwood Park just adds to the pain but validates the reality. While AB 38 offers some limited future state funding to undertake such fire hardening projects, those funds will not be available until 2024, leaving our historic homes and hence the entire neighborhood vulnerable as we approach the upcoming 2020 wildfire season. The 2020 wildfire season is already being projected by fire professionals to be the most potentially dangerous of any wildfire season to date, given our minimal amount of rainfall this year. We're told to expect seeing many wildfires occurring in the Santa Cruz Mountains this year, and with the strong mountain winds blowing through Glenwood Park to our higher topology perched above town, fire embers carried in these strong winds can quickly travel several miles to reach this exposed neighborhood. This is not theory, but today's harsh reality.
So, sir, thank you. Your 1 minute is up. I'm sure we'll get the rest of the letter from your companions. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, were there any questions from council members? Hang on a second. Anybody have a question? Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ma'am, as you come forward, I've asked you, please don't touch the microphone, but let us know who you are, and you have 1 minute. If you speak up, I'm sure we can hear you.
Okay, is this good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mary Pat Power, Walnut Avenue. Glenridge Park has just become designated the newest Firewise USA community in America by the National Fire Protection Association, joining over 300 communities in California and over 1,700 communities across the country that clearly see that the threat to human life and property. Firewise Glenridge Park is building a community-wide effort together with CAL FIRE and Santa Clara County Fire to address wildfire safety by targeting reductions in structural and as the most effective way to reduce our risk of exposure. If even one home burns, given the powerful winds that we frequently experience here during the wildfire season, it puts our entire community at risk. So the weakest link affects everyone in Glenridge Park. And we don't want to become the next Paradise, a community the size of Los Gatos that was completely destroyed by a wildfire in a geography with similar perfect storm wildfire conditions to ours.
Thank you. And the clerk has asked you to please restate your name for the record.
Mary Pat Power.
Thank you very much. Let's see if you have any questions. Are there questions from members of the council? No? Thank you very much. Ma'am, you please come in and step to the podium, but please don't touch the microphone. Try to get close enough so that we can hear you, and please give us your name.
My name is Kristen Reichmuth, and thank you, Council, for listening. As the Governor stated, the wildfire threat is real, and for communities, the WUI is imminent. The Town Council of Los Gatos has seen fit to accept state provision funding to undertake vegetation fuel management along Highway 17 corridor. This meager start does nothing whatsoever to make the Glenridge Park neighborhood safer. The good news is that California's Historic Preservation Act provides for wildfire funding we can access today to fire harden our most flammable historical homes and to lower vegetation to fuel nearest these homes. For these reasons, we implore the Town Council to promptly vote to adopt the Mills Act, opening the door for homeowners to access the state provision funds that California wants us to use to improve wildfire safety and preserve history from being destroyed by fire.
Thank you. That's your 1 minute. Let's see if you have questions. Are there questions from the council? Mr. Rennie.
Mayor, could I ask a question of staff on this?
Ms. Pravetti has briefly left the room. When she comes back, you can. Do you have a question for the speaker? Because if not, I'm going to let her leave the room.
No, that's okay.
Okay. All right. So thank you. Ms. Pravetti is back. So what is your question?
Well, the speaker said that we accepted money to remove the shrubbery along 17. Did we accept any money for removal of brush on 17th. Did Los Gatos accept any money?
No, that is not a town project. That's a Caltrans and Cal Fire project. We are the beneficiaries of that, that work that is being done currently, but the town is not responsible for that right-of-way, and we did not accept any funds.
That answer
Okay,
your
thank
question?
you.
Okay. Sir, I think you've been advised, please don't touch the microphone. Speak loudly so that we can get you on our record. And please state your name first, because we don't have cards this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, citizenry. My name's Eddie Morris, and I would like to, like you said, finish up the open letter that you've all read, but I just want to make it available to all the people watching out there and the people who will be watching on YouTube also. At this juncture, Mayor Jensen's support is the key to our moving rapidly to create a fire-wise, safer community in time for the impending wildfire season. In light of the imminent threat to life and property in the WUI, we respectfully ask Mayor Jensen to put the Mills Act vote on the Town Council agenda and for the Town Council to support a quick vote for its adoption and administration. The clock is ticking loudly, and the welfare of our community requires urgent action to avert a potential catastrophe as described in Governor Newsom's wildfire emergency proclamation. It's time to apply the lessons learned from Paradise and avoid Los Gatos repeating history. Time is of the essence. I was asked to finish the letter because I used to be a professional forest firefighter, and I can tell you, with social media and drones and airplanes, you can see a lot of devastation, but you have no idea the awesome evil power of these wildfires until you're actually up close fighting them. And we can be proactive.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your remarks, and because you appreciate safety, we want you to get home and be healthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kitty.
Is there anyone else? That's it. Thank you very much. So I don't know if I closed it beforehand, but Ms. Pavetti, just for our record and for whoever may be watching, and Mr. Schultz as well, if you would like to add, remind me exactly what the Mills Act does. Does it provide funds for fire, or does it do something different?
No, the Mills Act is an opportunity, if jurisdictions are interested, to create a tax break for property owners. And the theory is that all money that is saved from that tax break should be invested in the historic home to maintain the historic integrity of that house. It's typically a 10-year rolling contract. Should the town ever adopt a Mills Act, we would need to administer those contracts and verify that, in fact, the investments are following a plan for the maintenance of that particular home. So it would require inspections and other work as well. The council has considered this as part of its strategic priorities, and as I recall, it's one of the last ordinances on the priority list for our town attorney.
And just remind me that when you said it provides a tax break, it provides a tax break for those who own historic properties, correct?
It only provides a tax break to those who enter the Mills Act contract with the town.
And the money received in tax savings that goes to the individual can be spent at their discretion under the contract. It need not go to any kind of fire safety improvement, is that right?
It goes towards the maintenance of the historic home for whatever.
As they choose.
Exactly.
And I would also mention that most jurisdictions our size that have such a Mills Act have between 3 and 10 homes within their Mills Act. They limit it to that amount because, as the town manager mentioned, of the need to monitor it and administer it. So it's only between 3 and 10 homes that would normally qualify. I would also mention that if this was an FPPC question, if you remember, there's 3 members that were chosen to hear this item back in October. That was yourself, that was Councilmember Sayoc, and Councilmember Leonardi. Since he's no longer with us, we'd have to choose another one if it does come back to you. But again, it was the last item on your goals and priorities of ordinance list.
I recall that, and I recall that all of the council members, except for me, were legally conflicted. With that ends the normal portion of our agenda. I will look to the council members who are on the conference call and the phone for any closing comments, if you have any. If there are none, I will adjourn the meeting shortly. Does anyone have any closing remark or comment?
No comments here.
Okay, hearing nothing. Before I adjourn the meeting tonight, again, for any people who may be watching at home, thank you for staying at home, and thank you for making sure that all of our community is safe. This is a time for all of us to come together and work to protect the most vulnerable in our community, be they a senior, a young child, a worker who has just lost their job. And this hits close to home, frankly, because my daughter's company is furloughing. So there are lots of impacts of this, and please don't be careless. Even if you feel well, you could be carrying the virus and infect someone else. So don't put us at risk, and be safe. Thank you very much, and good night.